Welcome back to the Tee 'em Up podcast. After a short absence, a few weeks off, we are back, and we are back just like COVID in the NBA with a vengeance. But how you feeling, Jared?
Other than some NBA players, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling really good actually right now. I'm the most basketball sports happy I've been in a long time.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting season, and we've really reached that point now after Christmas where games really start to matter. As I know a lot of people around the league see that Christmas Day games is like, all right, now things get real. So we got a lot to talk about. So we're just going to kind of get into it, man. Jared, I kind of put this in there. I want to give a shout out to Miami because for those who don't really pay attention, it has really been a whirlwind since the last time that we talked. And despite missing most of their key players to either injury or COVID, or in some cases, both, they've been able to keep this team not only alive but thriving. And I just have some numbers here. I'm going to run by you, so stay with me real quick. So Miami currently this season is 9-6 without Jimmy Butler. They are 13-5 without Bam Adebayo. They are 3-1 without Kyle Lowry. They are 4-2 when they play without Tyler Hero. 5-0 without PJ Tucker. And 16-10 when they play without Markieff Morris, who hasn't played since that altercation with Nikola Jokic. Those are all winning records with, I would say, 6 of their probably top 9 rotation guys that they have. And Miami, what we knew coming into the season is they have a pretty good bench, but I don't think we knew how good of a bench that they had. And I'm starting to really come around to that, with arguably their two best players, in Bam, who's been out because of injury, but also has dealt with health and safety, and Jimmy Butler, who's dealt with a little bit of both as well. They've missed a combined 33 games so far this season. And Miami has seen the growth of guys like Hero, who a lot of people saw, hey, this guy can ball. What about like Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Omer Yurtseven, and Caleb Martin? These guys who, outside of Miami or hearing about like Cody Martin instead of Caleb Martin, his brother, you don't hear about these guys in the league. Gabe Vincent, who's an undrafted player, Max Strus, I believe he was either undrafted or a late second round draft pick, coming in and playing key minutes. And I think these guys have really played a huge role in keeping Miami afloat. They currently sit at the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference, which to me, I am overjoyed with the amount of guys that we have been missing. And I believe that this rough stretch is really going to pay huge dividends down the stretch. And you have a large part of your bench that now is going to have experience playing these clutch minutes and having success and winning in clutch time. So I don't know what you feel about it, but those are just some of the numbers that I had to run through and just kind of put in perspective the amount of guys that they've been missing, and the fact that they're at the 4th seed. To me, I am overjoyed with.
Yeah, I've caught a Heat game here or there during the stretch. I think it was one of the nights against the Bucks where they actually got a win. Like Cody Martin.
Yeah.
No, is it Caleb or Cody?
Caleb. It's
Caleb Martin.
Yep.
Caleb Martin was fantastic. He was
Mhm.
like getting crazy up and under layups. He was hustling like every play. Max Strauss has looked awesome. Shout out to that DePaul graduate. Um, that all these players like you never heard of were contributing against the defending champions, and I
Mhm.
have to say I was really impressed. I will say though, since in the last couple weeks though, Miami's strength of schedule has kind of helped them a little bit. I
Mhm.
mean, they've got some
Oh,
games
I won't
against the
deny
Pacers
that. Yeah.
and Pistons, but as I've seen with that Pacers team, don't sleep on them. They're a little danger. They're a bad team, but they're a team that can get a good win and knock you down the ladder a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you got to watch out for those guys. But other than that, I'm impressed with Miami's resilience in missing their big players.
Yeah, I think anytime you go, I mean, the NBA, let's be honest, they can be missing a lot of star players. But then, at the end of the day, an NBA team is never a team you can look past. I mean, obviously, playing the Detroit Pistons, you feel like you should win, but at the end of the day, they are NBA players and they could get hot at any point. But I think a lot of the times with Miami over this stretch, they've had a starting lineup of, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Tyler Hero, Dwayne Dedman, Omer Yurtseven. That's not a starting lineup that's scaring anybody in the league, where they're going in there like, listen, okay, Miami's a pretty good team, but look, Miami's not there. They don't have Lowry. They don't have Bam. They don't have Jimmy. And we saw Jimmy come back just the other day, drop 37 points. Like, he was itching to get back on the court. If you know Jimmy Butler, but
He can be a bucket if he wants.
oh, man, it's just great to see. And I was just being a Miami fan, and anybody out there is listening who's been a Miami fan, it seems like our history is we go on these stretches where we look like we're some of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And then we just hit these lulls. And it sometimes is just a single injury that, you're missing one of your guys or it's usually something very kind of minuscule that you should be able to fight around. And Miami seems to struggle with that. But this year, it seems like they've gotten out of that. They really seem to be the next man up, mindset. These guys are coming in playing key minutes. And I think, once we get to a playoff series where dealing with COVID, you don't know who's going to be there for a playoff series. You could have a Jimmy Butler test positive, and all of a sudden he's missing the first 2 to 3 games of your first round matchup. And all of a sudden, if Miami's a 3 seed and you're playing the 6 or whatever, then all of a sudden you look like the underdogs because you're missing your top guys. So you never know what's really going to happen when you get to playoff time. But I really wanted to kind of give them a shout out and just kind of run through the numbers and what they've been able to do. And I think it's been very impressive. And I think it's one of those things where we talked a lot about the Warriors. When they get Clay back and when we get James Wiseman back, I think Miami, where they're sitting, once they get some of their guys back, it's going to be even scarier as they start to move through this Eastern Conference. But so now I want to move on to another team in the Eastern Conference, and one that's really kind of been the surprise of the season. I don't think anybody will argue, and that's been the Cleveland Cavaliers. They currently sit at 5th place in the Eastern Conference, but unfortunately their point guard, Ricky Rubio, has went down with an ACL injury for the rest of the year. So this has led to the Cavs acquiring veteran point guard Rajon Rondo from the Lakers. So Jared, what does Rubio's loss mean for the Cavs, and does this move help fill the gap at all?
Rubio's loss definitely hurts the Cavs. The Garland Rubio combination has been praised by journalists all season from what I've seen. I've thought it's been a good pairing, especially in the wake of Colin Sexton going down. So as you can tell, the Cavs, they need some backcourt help. And I think Rajon Rondo was a positive move. I don't think it's going to replace the production that Rubio had, especially because Rubio's still kind of in the prime of his career. This was one of his better seasons in the NBA, actually. And Rondo, Rondo's kind of tailed off. He wasn't getting much runtime with the Lakers. And in my opinion, for good reason. There's a lot of names that the coach can call to go into that rotation. And Rondo, he really doesn't pop like he used to. He's not as effective as he used to. But in this situation, I think he will be able to help the Cavs out. He's got veteran experience, which in my opinion, these young teams don't have enough veterans.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it hurts when you have a young team, the young players like Evan Mobley and all those guys. They can use some championship experience. This guy's been there and done it before. The Cavs obviously aren't going to be contending. And honestly, their playoff hopes could be in jeopardy, but Rondo is a nice patchwork to fix a sinking ship without Ricky Rubio. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that all you had to do is get rid of Denzel Valentine to do it.
Yeah, who's just going to
get waived. Trust me, I've watched that dude for a few years. They won't miss him.
Yeah, he's just going to get waived too and probably grab one somewhere like Sacramento. But
I don't even think Sacramento would want him.
Definitely. Yeah, you touched on a key point there. It hasn't really been talked much about outside of Cleveland, but Ricky Rubio has really been one of the best backup point guards in the league this season. He's been fantastic. He was averaging very solid 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 6.5 assists in his 34 games he's played so far this season. So I think for me, it was great to see Rubio really kind of find his place in the league. He came in, he was such a talented, kind of highly touted guy coming from overseas. We really wanted to see what he was capable of. He showed a lot of promise. He never really fit into that star role that Minnesota was kind of trying to push him into, which they missed out there because they should have been pushing Zach LaVine into that star role. But that's a discussion for another day. But
I ain't upset about that.
Yeah, I know you're not. But it was sad because Ricky Rubio has really kind of developed into a veteran guy who can still go out there and give you a bucket. He kind of reminded me a lot of like a Goran Dragic, what Miami would do, kind of just lead that second unit. It was great for the young guys in the locker room. And as far as Rondo goes, I think he can help fill the gap by Rubio, but he's going to have to do it in a little bit different way. At this point in their careers, Rondo is not a better player than Rubio. He was at some point, but now what he does have in his favor is his experience and most notably his championship experience. And if anybody knows Rondo, he's a hard player. He is a champion. I'll give him that, but he does things a little bit differently. I think Rondo can still kind of lead a second unit in the NBA. He's definitely not a starting point guard by any stretch of the imagination. And I think Cleveland's hope is that he can kind of push the young guys on the roster that you were talking about, kind of towards that next step that they want to get to in the future. Evan Mobley is such a young, talented player. They have, the three towers that, down there with Jared Allen, Laurie Markkinen, and Evan Mobley. And I think Rondo can kind of mentally help push them a little bit towards what they want to do in that next step and to really be a contender. And I got to give props to the Cavs because this was a situation where things could have gone really south, really bad, and you could go out there for a few weeks, play some games, lose some games that you feel like you should have won before you go out there and try to make a move. I think they went out there, they saw Rajon Rondo was a veteran guy. He plays the position that they need, and they went out there and they made a move, like you said, gave up really nothing on their end. And I got to give them credit for trying to make this move quickly and to move forward as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I still think though that Rondo's trying to outdo Shaq with the whole rainbow jersey thing going on.
Yeah, I saw that. We got the whole.
I think he's surpassed Shaq.
Yeah, when the amount of yeah, there's a lot of. Well, Isaiah Thomas is up there too. He's going to join that rainbow club too. Especially,
it's so sad.
I think they were waiting for him to play a game in the Dallas Blues because the first game he played with Dallas was in their white jerseys, which I hate, by the way, but it was in their like alternate throwback whites. It was awful, but oh man. So we talked a lot so far this episode about the Eastern Conference, but there's a team over in the Western Conference that, Jared, I know you have something that you want to get off your chest. So I'm just gonna, without further ado, go right ahead. The floor is all yours.
All right. That franchise is the Sacramento Kings. As you guys are well aware, this team plays in Sacramento, California, but typically it's forgotten about when compared to the other California teams like the Golden State Warriors, Los Angeles Lakers, and the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, Ben Simmons said 3 California teams he wanted to go to. The 3 California teams. Sacramento is one of the 4, but it's completely forgotten, and for good reason. This franchise is a dumpster fire. They haven't made the playoffs since 2006. I wasn't even 10 in 2006.
Oof.
I couldn't have named one player on the Sacramento Kings in 2000. Well, I can't now, obviously. But this franchise has bad ownership, bad management, bad coaching choices. Like Alvin Gentry, who replaced Luke Walton this season, summed it up best, which is why this has sparked this this whole rant I have, saying that it's the most disappointed he's ever been in his NBA career as a coach. And Gentry's been in some pretty bad coaching situations, like some back in New Orleans. That wasn't great. He was fired from somewhere else, I think, semi-recently, or some other team before that. It's basically been downhill for him since he's been the Warriors assistant coach. And this run as the interim coach for Sacramento hasn't been any good. And I really can't blame him. You look at the players on the roster. De'Aaron Fox has taken a step back this season. Marvin Bagley, they don't know what to do with him. You don't know what you have there, and they just keep holding him and not really playing him. Honestly, and I never advocate for a franchise to move or get sold, but I am all in for the Kings to get sold, stripped of their name and colors, dump everybody off the roster except for like Tyrese Halliburton, Richaun Holmes, and the one guy from, was it Baylor? Davion Mitchell.
Oh, Davion, yeah.
And move them to Seattle or something. This franchise has a history of moving around. It moved all the way from Rochester, New York to Sacramento with like 3 or 4 stops in between. Jeez. Franchise has gone under several names. And for as long as it's been in the NBA, you think it would have seen more success than, I believe, the 1957 NBA championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's this franchise. It's embarrassing for the league. There should be no reason in basketball where more than half the league makes the playoffs every year that you haven't been there once since 2006. Couldn't do it with DeMarcus Cousins, Tyreek Evans, Isaiah Thomas, and we were well past those years. Those were the glory days of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And we're well past that.
Yeah.
It's this franchise, something has to be done. Take it away from the owner because he's doing these fans no service. And I don't even think these fans want this team anymore. And I can't blame them.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in the importance, in order to get success and stability in a franchise has to come from the top. And for me, that has to do with ownership. In the Kings case, their ownership has really shown little to no signs of even wanting to improve. They seem to just go through the motions every single year. They're not really involved in the free agency market, never have been. They rarely make any sort of trades, definitely no trades of any note. They whiff on their high draft picks that they get. They're not out there making the blockbusters. We're seeing them waste careers like Boogie Cousins, who everybody kind of forgets now what Boogie Cousins was. He was Joel Embiid before Joel Embiid, if not better. I mean, Joel Embiid
is the best center in the NBA.
Joel Embiid is a great player. I think he'll win an MVP at some point. But Boogie Cousins was amazing. Like it was the time where it's like you get a notification, oh, he dropped 50 points and 22 rebounds, and they lost by 6. And it's like, can we free my man Boogie? And unfortunately, he's gone through those injuries, never has been the same player since, which I hate to see. But, all signs with the Kings just point to a bad franchise. And to me, everybody always says you want to see the team move. We want to see things move. I know a lot of fans of the NBA would love to see a team back in Seattle. It feels like they were robbed from the Supersonics, and I get that completely. I'm in full support of that. But I don't think just a move will solve the Kings. I don't think it has to do with the lack of support from their fan base. To me, this starts at the ownership level, and they seem to have an ownership that doesn't want to compete, doesn't want to put in the work, put the time, put the money into trying to develop this roster. Go out there and sign a big free agent. I mean, what was the biggest free agent they signed? Harrison Barnes?
I think they re-signed him. I think they traded for him from the Mavericks. That was the infamous mid-game on the bench. And so
that's the only one that I really remember. The biggest trade that they've made in the last, 8 years is Harrison Barnes. And Harrison Barnes, good player. He's not winning a championship.
Hey, they trade away their players, though. They traded DeMarcus Cousins for Buddy Hield. So
they'll do that.
Trade.
They'll do that.
I mean, they'll make a big trade for somebody else.
Yeah, there's another guy, Buddy Hield. He can go and help someone off the bench. He could be a 6th man of the year.
This whole roster, if you look at it up and down, it's the perfect buyout / trade market team. Tristan Thompson's probably going to go into the buyout market. Harrison Barnes would be great for a contender. I'd like
a nice wing defender. Oh, they love it. Love it.
There's a ton of players that deserve. Even Marvin Bagley probably could use a change of scenery to resurrect some of what his potential was, at least seen by others around the league, that got him drafted over Luka and Trey. So
yeah, I'd like to see with Marvin Bagley, I'd love to see him. He doesn't even have to go to a good team. Can I just get him to a younger team that shows that they want to win? Like,
that's competent.
People can make fun of me, but send him to Detroit. Pair him with Cade Cunningham. See what you got. Detroit knows, at least in Detroit's kind of situation that they're in, they're playing their young guys minutes. They're seeing what they got. They're not out there, pretending they're anything that they're not. Cade Cunningham is looking like he's going to be a fantastic player in this league. He's having a great rookie year. Send Marvin Bagley over to Sacramento, pair him with Cade, see what you got. And if he doesn't work, it's easy to move off of him.
I, as a Bulls fan, will accept a trade for Matt Thomas.
Thomas for Marvin Bagley?
Oh, yeah, please. We need some front court help, and I wouldn't mind taking a swing at him. We'll even swing the pot, maybe throw in. Actually, I kind of like Tyler Cook. No, we're not throwing in Tyler Cook. You can have Matt Thomas.
Never mind. No, I agree with you in most things you said, and to me, it's not an easy solution because obviously you can move a team, but then you almost have to force an owner out. And unfortunately, the Sacramento Kings, no one even knows who their owner is. So it's not like he's out there making headlines. A lot of the times when owners
don't know his name, but I know who he is.
Yeah, I looked him up too. But a lot of the times when owners make headlines, unless you're, Mark Cuban, they're normally negative headlines. And that's the only time you really hear about the owners. And him, you don't hear anything. So it's not like that he's done anything where the ownership group can really have a reason to force him out. But I don't know, man. I don't know the solution to Sacramento. It does just kind of seem like a wasted team. Like, there's 29 teams in the NBA because, the Sacramento Kings aren't going to do anything. But when you wanted to talk about this, I thought it was definitely interesting to kind of run through. And I agree with you. I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know if anybody knows what the answer is, but I'm sure if anybody does, you can feel free to send that to the Sacramento Kings because it looks like they need some help in their front office. So
just tweet at them on Twitter.
Yeah, there you go. Which they have a great social media team.
I was going to say the best part of the only thing worth saving that organization other than Tyrese Halliburton is the social media team.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's ever running that, let's just give them a promotion into the front office and have them, have some control over player development, and we'll see
I mean,
see what goes of.
they might have better ideas. They probably see all the comments and replies they get from frustrated fans. So
Exactly.
they could probably right the ship.
Well,
I'm
the
sure
fans
they
could
have.
probably help with some of the draft picks they keep on missing on too. So
Honestly, I play a lot of 2K My League. Let me get a crack at it.
there you go. Just give a run at it. You never know. Oh man. So moving on from a team that can't get it going to a team that sitting at the top, towards the top of the Eastern Conference, is the Brooklyn Nets, and Kyrie's back. I mean, he's kind of back. I mean, he'll be
With an
allowed back.
asterisk.
He'll be allowed back on the roster and will be able to participate in road games that take place in states that will allow him to play while being unvaccinated. He will also be able to practice in Brooklyn, but he will not be able to play his home games. So, Jarrett, is this good for the Nets, or is this just going to be a distraction?
Well, I think with the Nets depth that we've seen at times this year, any addition at any level on that roster is going to be good. Whether you get a media frenzy that Kyrie Irving is for half the time, well, those road games are going to help because you're going to have a bolstered backcourt, definitely. Um, and I mean, Kyrie Irving, he's a professional bucket getter. He was going to be a great two guard alongside James Harden. And I'm kind of excited, although at the same time, like both our teams are competing in the East, so scared to see how this trio plays together. Because really, we don't really know what this trio is like together. We haven't seen them run together enough
No.
because all last season, the three of them were in and out of the lineup with injuries. And now that KD's coming back from being out of health and safety protocols, and Harden's been, well, looking more like James Harden the past couple of weeks, especially with KD being out, this Nets team could look to go on a run. So in the playoffs, watch out, teams, at your home games, because Kyrie's going to be there in the first round. And ooh.
Yeah, see, I'm taking a little bit different approach to this one. And for me, in the long run, I think this will do more harm to the Nets roster than it will possibly help. And I have reasons for it. Don't get me wrong, Kyrie's a fantastic player. In my mind, as long as he continues to play, he's going to be a Hall of Fame caliber player. He's going to put up the numbers. But I'm thinking about playoff time, because with the Nets, I'm not worried about the regular season. They're going to be just fine. They're going to be right there at the top of the Eastern Conference. If not the 1 seed, they'll definitely be in the top 4. They will be hosting a home playoff series in their first round. I don't have any doubt about that. I think for me, the problem comes in the playoffs is once they get to kind of round 2 or 3, and say they open up their first 2 games at home and they split them or something. They're playing, a tougher opponent. They go on the road 1-0 and then, or 1-1. And then all of a sudden Kyrie comes back into the lineup, and it's like, okay, well, now we have to change a little bit what we're doing. And I know they'll theoretically have the rest of the season to kind of figure these things out. But this isn't an easy thing to figure out, where it's Kyrie's there and all of a sudden you're relying on him for 25 points a night. And then the next night, oh, hey, we're playing in Toronto. He's not going to be there. We don't have those 25 points. So it's just kind of like missing what he gives you and having to adjust to play without Kyrie. And in the playoffs, I think to me, the timing is a little bit more too, because the games are spaced out. So there's times where you go home for a 2-game series, you might not see Kyrie for a week, and he's just gone away from the team for a week. He could show up to practices. When the playoffs, it's more of just kind of walkthroughs. You're not really doing too much as far as on the practicing side. So to me, I don't see this as a good thing in the long run, just because I'm thinking about playoff time. I'm thinking about in the playoffs, there's no second chance. There's no, oh, we haven't really gotten it figured out yet, but with some time, with some reps, we will. In the playoffs, if you don't have it figured out, there could be a team where you could look at, a Chicago or a Miami, and while they might not have, the talent that Brooklyn has, there's no doubt that Miami or Chicago could be the more well-oiled machine, could be the better team in a series, and could catch them off guard really quickly and bounce them out of the playoffs, because there's no second chance. So for me, it's a tough situation, because obviously they need bodies. They need healthy bodies that can come in and play, especially dealing with COVID. Kyrie is an all-star caliber player, but I just think this is going to do more harm than good, and I'm just solely thinking about playoff time.
That's definitely fair. I would agree with that, because consistency is key in the playoffs. And as we saw with the Nets last year, they struggled in the playoffs at times because they didn't have consistency, to where James Harden was a corpse, because when he finally
Mm,
did come back from his hamstring injury, he really didn't come back. He was still dealing with that injury. It was clear he was more of a decoy or a distraction out there, to where you hoped one of the like two Bucks players would key in on him on a play to leave KD open,
yeah.
which as we saw, KD had to carry the load that whole series. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see, especially the players that are expected to step up in the wake of Kyrie's absence. Just how is their consistency? How's their rhythm going to be affected? Because some nights they'll be needed, some nights they won't.
Yeah. I just don't think you can have a part-time star player in the NBA. I just don't think
It'll be interesting. I'm kind
it's
of excited to
yeah.
see just what happens, and if
Yeah.
I, I- Kyrie should just get vaccinated already.
Yeah, and
It's
I always go
silly.
back to some people might not know this in the NBA, but it was a few years ago where Kentavious Caldwell Pope was on the Lakers and he was technically on house arrest, where he was able to play home games. It was kind of the opposite of what Kyrie's dealing with. He couldn't. I believe he could play any game in um, California, so he could play against the Clippers, he could play against Golden State, he could play against Sacramento, but he couldn't leave the state of California. So he was kind of, I believe, for the first 2 to 3 months of the season, he could only play home games. And I think that worked a little bit because Kentavious Caldwell Pope, you're not relying on him to come in and get 25 points. Kentavious was a good player. If he gave you 10 and 3 rebounds, you're like, all right, good game, KCP. We appreciate that. But Kyrie, I just think to have a part-time star player, or in a star player, I think you kind of just write into the box score, hey, KD is going to get me between 27 and 33. He might give me more, but I don't think he's going to give me in. He might give me 25, but he's not going to give me, 20. Like, we know what KD's going to give me. You know what Kyrie's going to give you. For the most part, in the entirety of his career, you know what James Harden's going to give you. But I think just it's so much harder to have a part-time star player, and this will be an experiment unlike any experiment we've seen in the NBA. So who knows? They could come in and just absolutely ball and work it out, and Steve Nash could be the best coach ever. But right now, I'm just not buying that. So we'll see where all that ends up. But moving on to our final and favorite segment. Oh, wait, no. My apologies.
Hey, slow your roll. Hey, come on, you can't.
My
Okay,
apologies. My apologies. Go
you
right
know
ahead.
what? We're used to that. We're
We
used
are.
to Bulls Nation being
Oh,
looked
wow.
over, even though somehow we're one of the most historic franchises in the NBA. We're one of the biggest markets in the entire country. The Chicago Bulls, in my opinion, especially this season, don't get enough playtime in the general media circles. I mean, it takes DeMar DeRozan, DMVP, two back-to-back for the first time in NBA history, game winners in consecutive days to get major playtime on House of Highlights. Somehow we passed up LaMelo for a few days there. I don't know how we did that. But the Chicago Bulls are rolling right now. Yeah, some of those games have been a little frustrating, not going to lie. I was angry during the Pacers game because we couldn't get a rebound to save our lives, which, like I said, we need some front court help. But this team, we're no joke this year. We're better than the fifth seed I projected us to be at the start of the season. DeMar DeRozan is way better than the worst signing of the free agency. I can't even believe that was a take. I knew that was dumb to start the season. All the Bulls fans knew that was dumb to start the season. And it has paid off better than anyone could have ever expected. DeMar DeRozan is a legitimate MVP contender in this game. I don't think he's going to win it. But he's up there, and he's worthy of the recognition. This man at 32 is arguably having his greatest season as a 4-time All-Star in this league already. He's going to be an All-Star starter. He's going to make the All-NBA team, and he's done what Chris Paul did for the Phoenix Suns last year. The Suns were towards the bottom of the West, struggling to get into the playoffs, and could never do it. Chris Paul comes around, they're in the NBA Finals. Yeah, a few injuries went their way, but I thought even if Kawhi played and all the other injury stuff that went their way, the Suns probably could have still been in the finals that year. The Bulls, towards the bottom of the NBA, didn't even make the plan, and now they're at the top of the Eastern Conference with a game lead over the Brooklyn Nets, 7-game win streak without Alex Caruso, without Lonzo Ball, without head coach Billy Donovan. This team's legit. Bulls fans have been waiting for a team like this for a long time. I haven't had this much fun with the Bulls team since Derrick Rose was at the top of his game. And I loved some of those teams in between injured Derrick Rose and where we're at now. So I just have to say, DeMar DeRozan, thank you so much for what you do for this city. And Bulls basketball is back.
Yeah, man. I got to give credit. Anytime anybody has a back-to-back, let alone, I mean, back-to-back game, let alone back-to-back day, buzzer beater wins, but 3 buzzer beater wins. And I'll give DeMar credit because he's not a big 3-point shooter. He's really kind of honed that mid-range game, and that's what makes him so dangerous. But all the props to him, knocking down 2 big shots, showing that he can be the guy down the stretch that is going to make those big make those big shots on a high clip. I got to give the Bulls credit. You know, they're currently 1 up on the Nets. They're 2 or also 1 up on Milwaukee, 2 up on Miami. Those are really kind of the top 4 contenders there in the NBA right now. 7-game win streak, 8-2 over their last 10. So looking good. Obviously, we'll see where things go as they get further and further down the season. I got to, as much as I gave Miami credit for getting through their COVID, Bulls did hit that kind of first, and they've had to deal with that as well. So, like you said, kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully for those Chicago Bulls players, that they won't have to really deal with missing a lot of guys on their roster while
Everyone's
moving
had
forward.
it.
Exactly. So now we'll see where things go, and definitely they position themselves now after Christmas where they can just keep the status quo, keep going, stay there. Maybe not the 1 seed, but heck, who knows? Maybe they hang on to that 1 seed for the rest of the season, and they can lock up a first round matchup against the Wizards or something like that, and give them a good shot to kind of boost them into as far as they can go in the playoffs. But I mean, at this point, they're not a team anybody wants to face. I'll tell you that much.
We definitely are. And I have to give out one more shout out to a Bulls player. How about Kobe White? The
Yeah.
man was dealing with that the shoulder surgery, came back, I think mid-November, was struggling a little bit. And then like the last few games, he's been like the best I've ever seen him. Yeah, he had like a back-to-back 35-point night before, but no, this is a different Kobe White. He's playing hard on defense.
Mhm.
Stepping in for Lonzo Ball as a starting point guard, a role where Kobe White's really not a point guard, but he's looked great playmaking. He had a 17-point, 12 assist night the other night. I think that was in the win over Indiana. And he's kept us in some of these games where it's given DeMar DeRozan the opportunity to hit a game-winning shot. He had 20 points against the Wizards the other night. Like this, he's a serious asset to this team, to where at the start of the season, we're talking like maybe he's a piece we can move to get another piece. Now I see him as a piece that he's integral to this team's success because he's going to get you buckets off the bench. He's finding his consistency. And this is the best case scenario for Kobe White coming back into this rotation.
Definitely. Definitely. I got to give props for their due. Not a big Chicago Bulls fan. And sorry, I
You're
almost
missing out.
skipped past him there, but now we will move on to our favorite segment. And that, of course, is the Tee 'em Up segment here on the Tee 'em Up podcast, where every week we dish out a technical foul. So, Jared, who are you teeing up? I guess we have a few weeks to choose from, but who are you teeing up on this episode here?
Well, you might be a little surprised, and this is a little ironic, but I have to tee up Zach LaVine.
Okay. Let's see it.
So the other night, and a lot of people on Twitter were pointing this out. I noticed this myself during the game. When DeRozan was going, there was like 9 seconds left as he was bringing the ball up. He really didn't look like he knew what was on the clock, and I was starting to get concerned. Like, DeRozan going for a 3-pointer? What's going on? You see Vooch in the corner expecting the ball. You see LaVine in the corner wanting the ball. And then DeRozan takes a shot, and you just see Zach LaVine's body language just like, oh my God, like, why? And then the shot goes in, and you see Zach LaVine pull up his jersey, stick his arms out like, oh, I'm glad that game's over. But you didn't really see him join the rest of the bench as they flew out and mobbed DeRozan. And come on, man. Like, I know you wanted the shot. I know this is your team. I know you're the guy, but give DeMar DeRozan his flowers. Like, be happy for each other's success. Like, I don't know if this is an issue. I mean, you hear DeMar DeRozan getting the MVP chance, and you're building when he's at the free throw line. I'm hoping this isn't the case, but I'm hoping that Zach LaVine, there's not some rift with DeRozan because DeRozan's getting a lot of attention for this Bulls team, and probably from the media most of the credit. So keep on keeping on, Zach LaVine, but come on, show a little more appreciation for your team when you hit something. Although I will say, last night being Saturday night, this is Sunday, he seemed pretty happy after DeRozan hit that one. So maybe it was just he was frustrated because he had a bad game. I don't know, but I have to tee up Zach LaVine for that regardless.
Definitely. And going from the Eastern Conference, I'm going to go all the way over to the West, and I'm going to tee up everyone on the Los Angeles Lakers not named LeBron. And for me, this is getting ridiculous. LeBron is 37 years old, and he's arguably giving you an MVP caliber season. There has been no drop off in his play as far as the numbers that he's been able to put up. And you would expect, and I coming into the season would even say maybe he's not a 27 point a game scorer anymore. He's more of a 23, 24. I was wrong. He's putting up points at an unbelievable clip. And in many ways, he's playing better than he ever has and carrying a bigger load than he ever has at this point. And the response he gets from his teammates is not getting back on offense. Who doesn't get back on offense, Jared? There was a clip a couple days ago. I don't even know what Laker game it was because they all run together at this point and just a clip show of mediocrity. But it was LeBron versus 5 on offense. And LeBron just takes the ball into the corner, is expecting his teammates to come down, try to make a play. No one. So he says, screw it. I'm just jacking up a 3 because no one else wants to come down here and play offense. It's ridiculous. I saw another clip. LeBron set up 4 shots in 1 possession for his teammates, led to 2 air balls and 2 of them banking off the back rim.
Was Westbrook responsible for any of those?
I actually know. It was a Malik Monk. There was a THT.
THT's garbage. He's bad.
There was a THT, and I believe one was a Stanley Johnson, and one was a. Actually, I don't even remember. I don't even know. But anyways, it was ridiculous. Missing 4 open shots. LeBron's just setting them up. He's going behind the back. He's doing what LeBron has always done, and it's no surprise. But they're supposed to be contenders, and everybody else in this roster is just not playing up to their own potential. And it's the frustrating part is it seems like it's just a lack of effort. And you shouldn't have to ask an NBA player to give you effort. This is what they do. And LeBron is giving you everything that he can. Russell Westbrook, I'll give him a little bit of credit, has been sort of kind of figuring out what he is, and he plays hard. No one's going to deny Russell Westbrook plays hard, but the argument with him is he's almost playing too hard because he's missing open layups. That could bring the game. Could bring the game within 1 with a minute to go. But that's a story for a different day. But with each passing week, the Lakers are just risking ending up in the play-in or just missing the playoffs altogether. And the worst part of this for me is they're wasting the greatest age 37 NBA season that we've ever seen. And to me, call me a LeBron homer, whatever. I get it. His numbers speak for itself. And at his age, it just sucks to see him on a team that doesn't seem they want to win. And I know we've seen LeBron teams in the past make these big trades. I don't see that happening. I know there's been rumors about Russell Westbrook. Heck, there's been rumors about Anthony Davis being moved. I don't know what the solution is. I don't think there is one. I know LeBron's thinking about it. But for me, get it together, Lakers, because the time is running out. And LeBron's going to get to a point in this season. He's going to put up these numbers. And if there's 20 games to go, he's just going to sit out. And I could not blame him at all. If he's like, you know what? I gave you everything I could. This is not the season for us. I'm going to save my body for my age 38 season. I wouldn't blame him one bit.
I would hold him a little accountable. Like, hey, man,
this
is the roster you wanted. Play the season out. To me, this Lakers team is kind of like the karma I've been waiting for LeBron to have his whole career. Whereas you saw with the 2018 Cavs, same situation, except the Cavs are smart because they picked up guys that could have worked or could not have worked that had tradable contracts or contracts you could just get rid of. Like Derrick Rose was playing on a veteran minimum. Thank God he bounced back and didn't completely fall out of the NBA. Dwayne Wade was an easy trade to Miami. Isaiah Thomas was an easy trade to the Lakers, ironically. But now you're stuck with a $45 million a year with Russell Westbrook. You're not going to move. Who wants that? Not even the Sacramento Kings would take that contract. They ain't giving you Buddy Hield, who you should have traded for Kuzma in the first place. DeMar DeRozan ain't reconsidering his free agency destination because you traded for Westbrook. So DeRozan's like, all right, fine. I'll go win in Chicago because, as he said, Oh my God, could you imagine winning in Chicago? So as a career-long, as a player, hater of LeBron James because he's done so much to my Chicago Bulls in
I
terms of
like how
trying
you
to
put the
get over the
player in
hump.
there to kind of
Oh,
justify it.
as a
That's
human being,
yeah.
he's an
Yeah.
amazing human being.
No, we don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
Yes,
we all understand
but as I sports hate LeBron, there's a difference between hating
that.
LeBron and sports hating. I sports hate LeBron. So as
I've
a sports hater of
yeah.
LeBron, this is karma working in my favor and my team's favor.
All
Because
right.
thank you for Caruso. Thank you for
You're
not
welcome.
signing DeRozan.
I have to push back a little bit on the karma thing. And I've heard this argument of LeBron put this team together and this is what you asked for. And all I have to say about that with LeBron is if we're going to blame him for roster creation, does he also get credit for putting together 3 championship rosters? I think it has to. I think it has to go both ways. I think so many people will be like, well, you know, the Heat stacked the team and he won 2 championships, and how could he not win in Cleveland? And then go, well, he put together this roster, so he fails. Just keep it consistent. That's all I want to know. If he is the blame for this roster not going to its full potential right now and being an old roster, that's fine. I also want him to have 3 more rings for putting together 3 championship rosters, but that's just the way that I look at it because you can't have it both ways. If he's the one putting together the rosters, he gets the credit when they succeed. But if you only want him to be a player when they win a championship, then that's fine. He's only a player now.
Well, if you want him to have those 3 more rings, then we'll give him those rings in a GM conversation so we can put him against Jerry Krause. But I don't think those rings are adding to the player conversation. But hey, we can have a LeBron against any other GM in NBA history debate because there might honestly be a conversation.
That's fine.
He's among the best.
Definitely an argument worth having, and that's fine. If you have that mindset, I'm just saying keep that mindset.
I'm just saying these are his guys though. You look at like obviously the GM, what's his Kobe's? I can't even think of his name right now.
Pelinka, Rob Pelinka.
Yeah, Rob Pelinka. He signed off on all these because he has to because that's his professional position. So he does get a lot of the blame because even though you have to keep LeBron happy if you want to keep him in your franchise, there's a point where he could have made some other moves like not getting rid of Alex Caruso, and I'm sure LeBron would have been fine with that because he loves Caruso. Clearly. Oh yeah. But hey, I am happy with how everything turned out because the Lakers' misfortune has ironically somehow been the Bulls' fortune. So
definitely
no complaints for me. Thank you for botching Lonzo Ball. Thank you for Caruso. And thank you for not signing DeMar DeRozan.
Oh, man. That's all we have for you guys this week on the TM Up podcast. Be sure to check us out on all the social media platforms at TM Up Pod. Follow us along as we continue to go through this crazy NBA season. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for listening to us, and have a great rest of your week.
Make sure to share us with your family and friends.